Welcome occultists to a new video. This is a collection of really bizarre stories that will not leave your psyche. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe for more scary content. Very few people experience something so traumatizing at a young age that it stays with them forever. I am one of those people. I was maybe 7 or 8 years old when my older brother Austin and I were living in a broken home. Our mom raised us after our dad disappeared from our lives, leaving her to work 2 jobs to support us. On nights when she had to work, our grandmother would stay with us. Given our circumstances, we were lucky to have our own rooms in our small house. But life wasn't easy. One night, like any other, I was playing with Legos in the living room while my grandmother watched TV. Austin was already in bed. My bedtime was 9:30, so it must have been close to that time. Our house had a simple layout: a living room, dining room, kitchen, and a hallway leading to the bathroom and 3 bedrooms. My mother's bedroom was at the end of the hall, my room was in the middle, and my grandmother slept in my mother's bed when she stayed over. Eventually, I had to go to sleep. My grandmother went to bed early, so after saying goodnight, she would brush her teeth and prepare for bed. I wasn't afraid of the dark and was generally a brave child. But that night, I woke up in the middle of the night, which was unusual because I was a heavy sleeper. I heard something creaking in the hallway. The hardwood floors in our house always creaked when someone walked down the hall. I thought my grandmother was going to the bathroom, but the creaking continued, moving back and forth. Curious and a bit confused, I got out of bed and went to the door to listen. Then I heard a whisper. I thought my grandmother was talking to Austin. I opened the door and looked down the hallway. What I saw still haunts me. A tall, naked, skinny woman was leaning against the wall with her head in her arms, whispering to herself. Then, like a deer caught in headlights, she turned to look at me. I screamed for my grandmother and slammed the door shut. The woman pounded on my door, screaming, "Jeremy! Jeremy, open the door!" I kept screaming for my grandmother, and she came running. My grandmother, despite being about 60 years old, was still quite fast. She yelled at me to keep the door closed and managed to fend off the crazy woman while also calling the police. I don't know how she did it, but she was tough. The woman eventually left, yelling for Jeremy. After closing the door, my grandmother hugged me and Austin, who was also awake and crying. We huddled together until the police arrived. My grandmother explained that she must have forgotten to lock one of the doors. The woman, likely high on something, had somehow entered our house. This incident affected me deeply. I couldn't sleep alone for a long time, and it was this event that prompted us to move out of that house shortly after. When I was 19, I lived a relatively normal life. I had just finished high school and always had a fascination with horror, movies, games, scares, you name it. I loved the thrill, and it made me look tougher to the girls I was interested in. It felt almost like a superpower. My friend Megan often talked about a real-life REM-induced nightmare called sleep paralysis, but I had never experienced it. Megan suffered from extreme lucid dreaming and explained how certain external factors could turn her dreams into heavenly experiences or hellish nightmares. Being a light sleeper, I didn't see this happening to me. One night, Megan texted me, asking for help after another bad episode. When I arrived, I found her seemingly asleep. I took a seat on her stool and started playing a game on my phone. After about 30 minutes, Megan suddenly woke up and started screaming. A scream I had never heard before. Her eyes were wide with terror. I ran to her side, asking if she was having a bad dream. She started to shake. I tried to calm her, but the tremors grew worse. I thought it was another of her sleep paralysis episodes. After about 30 seconds, she regained control of her body. I made sure she was okay and then left because it was almost 1 o'clock in the morning. Just as I got home, I received a panicked text from Megan saying, "The hallucinations won't stop." I asked her to clarify, but there was no response. After about 30 minutes, I drove back to her house. When I arrived, I saw red and blue lights covering her front porch. I ran towards her house, trying to figure out what happened. Megan was talking to an officer. She and the officer walked me to a more secluded area and explained what had happened. Apparently, when I went to her house, she wasn't asleep. She had been pretending. There was a tall, thin, homeless man hiding in her closet with a large kitchen knife. Megan thought she was having an episode, but this man was very real and creeping towards her. My presence scared him into hiding, giving Megan time to call 911. The police arrived almost immediately after I left, and the man was arrested. This incident still chills me to this day. I could have saved Megan's life by simply keeping her company during what I thought was a stressful situation. Last winter, I went on a trip to see some friends from college. The trip was 18 hours long, so I did it in 2 9-hour sections and stayed in an Airbnb along the way. On the way back, I booked a different Airbnb for fun. Heavy snowfall caused delays, and I didn't arrive in town until 9 p.m. It was a small area with few houses. When I arrived at my Airbnb, it was quite far from other houses but modernized compared to the others. I parked and entered the house. After checking all the rooms, I put my things in the bedroom and walked out to the couch. As soon as I sat down, I heard a tapping noise behind me. I quickly turned my head to see a woman outside the window, banging on the glass. Her hair was messy and long, and she had a wild look in her eyes. She pointed towards the front door and walked away. I got up and headed to the door. Knowing she was just an old lady, I didn't feel scared but definitely not safe. I opened the door enough to talk to her. She smiled and said she needed help, claiming she lost something on the road outside. I looked outside but couldn't see anything. "I'm not really sure I can help with that," I said. Her smile faded, and she repeated her claim word for word. "I'm sorry," I said, closing the door. I waited a minute until I heard her leave and then returned to the couch. I wasn't sure if she was crazy or if something else was going on, but it was a strange encounter. I relaxed and watched TV until 11 o'clock when I went to bed. I found it hard to fall asleep, and after an hour, I woke up abruptly. I heard a sound from the front of the house. It was silent but stood out in the stillness. My mind went to the lady from before. I got out of bed and walked nervously down the hallway. I rushed to the front door, but it opened just as I put my body against it. I pressed all my weight against the door, feeling someone on the other side pushing. After a few seconds, they gave up and ran away. I locked the door and ran to the window, but they were already gone. I grabbed my things and left, not wanting to be in that house anymore. I knew the police wouldn't be much help in such a small town. I'm sure the person was with the woman from that night. If I had helped her or woken up a second later, I don't think I would have been seen again.